So I am the founder or co-founder of Chloe Innovations Limited, a company that designs a syringe extension device to provide pain medication during manual vacuum aspiration processes. Well, about me, I was born in Cameroon, raised in Kenya, and I know you're wondering, why is this relevant? Give me a few seconds, you'll understand it better. So our companies are based in Kenya and in Washington, precisely at the Seattle region. And we are a global company because we seek for collaboration to advance our medical device design and its implementation in Africa. And the question becomes then, if my company is in Kenya and in the US, how did I end up in Delft, right? And so currently in Delft, I am a PhD candidate pursuing research in medical device design for low resources in Africa. And I came to be in the sense that I met a student, from this faculty in Kenya, and he was doing the medical device, design research. And I saw his work on Instagram, and we met for coffee after a few days. And I was so intrigued by the design process of TU Delft that, so long story short, I became a Dev Global Fellow, which I came now to Delft to study my master's degree and now a PhD, and I'm still here as a researcher in the topic of medical device design for Africa. Chloe was born out of, an experience or an encounter where I was visiting a doctor friend of mine. And as we were walking past the corridor, I could hear screams in the theater. And as I posed a question to him, why are they screaming? And he said that these were women undergoing manual vacuum aspiration processes to remove leftover tissues after miscarriage. And they are going through this process without pain medication. And the screams were so loud that it sparked in me, a need to, how can we solve this problem? How can design solve this problem? And that was how this device, Chloe syringe extension, was born, which then now provides the additional length for a doctor to reach the cervix and administer pain medication before they can evacuate the tissues from the uterus caused by miscarriage. Over the last few years, we have been, designing the device, from different iterations, but also doing clinical trials. All these are essential to show your process of how you, first of all, even found the problem, how you designed the solution, how it was clinically tested and validated to show proof that it actually works, right? And then now you're moving into the process of regulatory certification. And I actually have described these processes in one of my recent published papers, which is titled "Realizing Accessible and Environmentally Sustainable Medical Devices in Low Resource Settings in Africa: A Personal Narrative of the Designer's Role and Competencies." This paper actually breaks down our activities, year by year for the last 8 years, on how we've gone through, design changes, clinical trials, the pilot and large scale, and also how we went through the process of trying to navigate getting approvals for medical device clinical trials in Africa. Typically in our company, which is still, young company, we are a team of 4. And we've worked in this process of the device design with many students in TU Delft, in Africa, and also in America. And my role has been primarily in 4 folds. One, the designer or instigator who actually, sees the problem and use creativity to bring our solution. And beyond that, I still shift roles. Now, medical device design requires large sum of financing, right? Which means you need investment. You need to raise some money to do the design process and also clinical trials. Then I shift from being a designer to being a designer entrepreneur, meaning that I go to conferences, I go to pitch events, I raise finances, I talk to investors to raise funds to be able to achieve the design and clinical trials. Now, at that stage, I move again to another role, which is actually becoming a policy advocate. Well, in this process of our medical device design, we've encountered some few surprises, especially in terms of medical device regulatory and certification. And for me, one of my biggest surprise is that in the African context, there's a high reliance on CE marking, even though CE marking is not, designed for the African context. And this reliance means that I have to understand the CE process, which is a European context, but then begin to explain an African reality to get the CE marking. And that for me, it's an interesting observation, which perhaps is also a disconnect, but I mean, that's what it is, right? Well, a key take-home message for any medical device designer is that document everything. It's a lengthy process, it's tedious, but you will not get access to clinical trials or regulatory bodies certification without showing proper documentation of your device. And that means from ideas to different design iterations to clinical trials to actually being in the process of regulatory certification. And so we take it for granted, the tiny design changes we do, but those are the things that you'll be asked for in every next step you do in medical device process. Even applying for clinical trials, you'll be required to provide documentation of your design, its materials, its manufacturing, and without the documentation, you might not, or you might have a very difficult time getting access or clearance to advance your medical device design into clinical use or even the market.